All right, my friends, welcome back. This is going to be part 38. Part 38 of my presentation on the flood and Noah's Ark. And I hope that everybody is learning something, learning some new things. I know I have going through this stuff, and it makes sense whenever you hear it on TV. At least you can have somewhat of a working knowledge about what they're saying. And so, what I have really learned, though, a lot of times is sometimes these evolutionists use these big terms and these hard to even understand words to kind of snow the people into thinking that the theory of evolution is right, and that somehow you have to have some doctorate or PhD or a professor or what have you to even understand the stuff. And so, but that's not the case. Remember that evolution is nothing more than a theory. And when you define that word theory, it means guess. It means a guess. That's basically what it means. A theory is just a guess. That's all it is. They really have nothing to show that's even true. But yet we see it in museums. We see it in textbooks. We see it at zoos, taught as if it was a fact. And it's not. It's not. It really isn't. And when I have evolutionists throw that term up, science, throwing science up at me like they have proved through science, somehow or another. And just recently, I had an evolutionist make a derogatory remark to me, stating that the belief in the Bible, as far as me, what they did is they said I was somebody from a medieval tribe. And so just because I believe in the Bible. And so, well, I hate to say it, but that old book has been around before the medieval period, and it'll be here way past medieval period. Even now, it'll still go on. God's word will last forever, and so no matter how they feel about it. And so, but science depends on observation and repeatability. Both of those things, evolution has zero evidence for, and so. Don't let them folks intimidate you and snow you by saying that they have proved through science that evolution is true. They have not. They have not. And so, and you can see through many of the things that I go through here, even the dinosaur and man presentation, where a lot of their beliefs is just flawed. It is, and but there's more science in the Bible than you could think of. But if you'll notice on the screen here, we're going to start getting into carbon-14 dating. And I'm going to kind of detail it as much as I can. And then I'm going to give you some examples of how it does not work. How it does not work. But I like this thing here this quote here from John Woodmorapp. John Woodmorapp. Now you should remember this book. It came from the mythology of modern dating methods. And so he goes through the different dating methods in depth. And so if you want to go down deep and stay down long in some of this stuff, this is a pretty good book here. But it says here, isotopic radiometric dating is the cornerstone of the uniformitarian belief that the Earth is very old. Myth. So because now that's one thing about the book. He'll give you a myth that people will say, and then he'll tell you the truth. What is really the truth about the matter. So this is the myth that you'll hear. Scientific creationists are obligated to explain isotopic dating methods before anyone can begin to seriously doubt the validity of these methods. And that's something that you'll have. It's like the burden of proof is on us. Reality check. Creationists are under no such obligation for the simple reason that the burden of proof is on the uniformitarian and not the creationist. This stems from the fact that it is not the creationists who are trying to have it taught as fact that the earth is young. It is the uniformitarians who are dogmatically claiming that the great antiquity of the earth is virtually proven fact, and doing it with no small amount of intellectual arrogance. And I will give a hearty amen to that. These folks are extremely rude sometimes. And so, at any rate, going on. As a result, It is the uniformitarians, not the scientific creationists, who have placed themselves at the mercy of the highest standards of evidence. This fact only serves to magnify the significance of all the laws of isotopic topic dating. Therefore, creationists can point out the fatal flaws of these dating methods without being under any sort of obligation to propose and defend alternative theories of their own. And so, remember, guys, sometimes you'll hear me say uniformitarians. That is, when I say that, you can go ahead and put evolution in that area. And so just go ahead and put evolution in that. That's what it is. That's where it all stems from, is that uniformitarian thinking. Now, what's really interesting is how the age of the earth has drastically changed in these people's theory. I'm telling you guys, it's always changing. They're constantly tweaking and changing their information. And so, but this is the thing. I had an evolutionist one time said, "Well, that's science. That's science. Science looks for new information." Now, and to a certain degree, he's right. He's right. But this is the thing: what they keep changing in their evolution still is not observable or repeatable. It's just whatever they do, they just change to a new theory, a new guess. There's nothing that they can hold on to that's fact. And so, but check this out here. This is really interesting, really eye-opening. And so, okay, if you'll notice, I've got the references actually on each one of these. But check out, guys, what they've done to the age of the earth. Integrated Principles of Zoology, 1996, page 151. In 1770, George Buffon, I'm going to say Buffon, said the earth, get this, guys, was 70,000 years old. 70,000. That was in 1770. Newsweek, July 20, 1998, page 50. In 1905, the age of the earth was officially 2 billion years old. So from 1770 to 1905, they changed it to 2 billion years old. That's a big change. And then the Minneapolis Tribune, Monday, August 25th, 1969. Study shows moon rock to be 3.5 billion years old, thus saying that the Earth is that date also, is that old also. This was an article just after the moon landing. The date was arrived by potassium argon dating, which we're going to talk about later on. And then the last one here, this is a recent one, and I got it right from an evolutionist site, evolution-outreach.biomedcentral.com, Evolution, Education, and Outreach. The article was, How Old is the Earth? Or How Old is Earth, and How Do We Know? This is from 2025. This is when I got this information. That's at basically the time of this recording. I wanted to have something recent, and right before I did the video, and they say it's 4.5 billion years old, and it's been that way for some time. So look at this, guys. From 1770 to 2025, they went from 70,000 years old to 4.5 billion years old. And it's really interesting when you look at that timeline, that 1770. Now, if you'll notice, this is a chart that I put together. And I do tweak it from time to time. I'm about running out of room here, and but I'm thinking about going ahead and placing that 1770 up there, that the Earth was 70,000 years old, and putting it up here. But still, I want you to notice the dating of this. 1770 is right around the time when Hutton wrote his first book, The Theory of the Earth, in 1795. And then the key players here, guys, is right in this little area of about 76 years. 76 years from 1795 to 1871, when Darwin wrote his book, The Descent of Man and Selection in Relation to Sex. And so, we're talking about this pivotal point in man's history when they decided that's it, where we want to throw God out. And of course, Lyell making that remark that they wanted to free the science from Moses. And so basically, they just did not want anything to do with God, so they tossed him out. And of course, you can see the downward fall that we've had since then. Now, let's go ahead and let's get into some carbon-14 date notes. We're going to go about as far as we can, and then we'll stop. I believe I've got a pretty good stopping point. The atom. Let's just start right from the atom. It's a fundamental unit of matter. It's made up of components called subatomic particles. If you'll notice that chart there, that picture there over to the right, a proton is a positive electric charge. A neutron, no electric charge. Both proton and neutrons make up the nucleus. It's a center of that atom. The electron goes around the nucleus. It's a negative charge. Atoms make up everything in creation, whether solid, liquid, or gas. Each atom has different properties. Some are heavier than others, and some are heavier than others, and some, especially the heavier ones, are unstable, decaying into smaller, more stable ones. We call these stable atoms radioactive. Now, going on, carbon-14 is also referred to as C14. You'll hear it referred to as C14. That's carbon-14. Radiocarbon, or you'll also hear it referred to as radiocarbon, radioactive carbon. There are many types of carbon. These are referred to as isotopes. You got carbon 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 is the one we're talking about, 15 and 16. All types of carbon has 6 protons. The proton gives us the type of element we are talking about. The proton gives the carbon its atomic number. Different types of carbon can have different numbers of neutrons. When you add the protons and neutrons, then you get the atomic weight or the atomic mass. So carbon-14 would have 6 protons and 8 neutrons. The 14 is the sum of the protons and the neutrons. Now, stable and unstable isotopes or atoms. An atom is generally stable if the number of protons equals the number of neutrons in the nucleus. If not, then it will decay. So a stable carbon is 6 protons and 6 neutrons. They're the same, so it's stable. A stable nitrogen, the same thing. 7 protons, 7 neutrons. They're the same. They're equal. And a stable oxygen is 8 protons and 8 neutrons. So it's stable. It's not going to decay. But carbon-14 has 6 protons and 8 neutrons. It's not the same, so it's unstable. It's going to break down. It's going to decay. Radioactive decay. The nucleus of an atom decays, changes into a new element. The proton number, the atomic number, has to change. Carbon-14 decays, changes to nitrogen-14. The proton changes from a 6 to a 7. Now, how long does it take for this to happen? The rate of decay is measured by how long it takes for a half of an element to decay. It's referred to as a half-life. The half-life of C14, carbon-14, is 5,730 years. What is a half-life? If a jar is full of carbon-14 in 5,730 years, half of the carbon-14 would have decayed or changed into nitrogen-14 or N14, you'll see it written as. In 11,460 years, 2 half-lives has happened. Half of the C14 that was in the jar would have decayed, leaving the jar 3/4 filled with nitrogen-14 and a quarter filled with C14. Okay, question here. If carbon-14 is constantly decaying, will we run out of C14 in the atmosphere? No. C14 is constantly being produced in the atmosphere. And that's going to be something we're going to come back at here in just a minute. And it may not be in this video. I mean, it's going to be in another video. But just remember that about the carbon-14 being produced in the atmosphere. It's kind of interesting what they found out. How long does it take for this to happen? Our atmosphere is mostly made up of nitrogen and oxygen. Cosmic rays, radiation, come in from outer space and change some of the nitrogen into C14. C14 then combines with oxygen to form carbon dioxide, CO2. The CO2 then gets taken in by plants through the food chain, thus, all living things get C14 in them. And so, now I showed you this, we were talking about this, about imagine a jar of C14. You got a jar of C14. In 5,730 years, it will decay, half of it will be gone. And then you half that amount again, another 5,730 years, and you get 11,460 years, it will half that again. And then you half that again, and then it's 17,190 years. And so that's the way that works. Every half of whatever's amount is in there will decay. Okay, looking at this chart here, if you notice up there at 1, it says, this gives you little visuals here. So you got cosmic rays, radiation, coming in from outer space and change some of the nitrogen into C14. C14 then combines to form carbon dioxide, which is CO2. The CO2 then gets taken in by plants and through the food chain, thus all living things get C14 in them. Now, rocks do not eat or breathe, so they can't be dated by C14. You can't date rocks with carbon-14. Carbon-14 dating won't work. Only once living things or organic materials can be dated using carbon-14 dated method. Now, when nitrogen-14 gets hit with cosmic radiation, the 7 protons gets bumped down to 6 protons, thus converting it to carbon. Being unstable, carbon-14 then decays and changes back to nitrogen by gaining a proton, where it all started from the beginning. Now, looking at the atmospheric layers here, you got the, if you remember, you got the troposphere and you got the stratosphere. Well, carbon-14 is being made around the upper troposphere. That's the area, that area of the bracket. That's the area where carbon-14 is being made. And so, again, remember this chart here. We're going to come back to this chart again because it's really interesting. And when we get into some aspects about the pre-flood world, you know, what was it like? Was there being carbon-14 being produced there? There's a kind of a debate with that. But remember this chart. We're going to come back to this chart again. Now, once the animal dies, once the organism dies, it starts a clock. As long as the animal is alive, it is taking in C14, carbon-14. But when it dies, no new C14 is taken in. The carbon-14 inside the animal continues to decay. The clock starts when the animal dies. And we're going to stop right there. I think that's a good place to stop. When we come back, we're going to continue on with this. And it's really eye-opening, guys. You know, the problems with this and how this right here is thrown in my face to prove that dinosaurs and man did not coexist together. And these folks that say this stuff have no clue what they're talking about. They don't even understand their own quote-unquote science that they throw up at me. But we're going to look at it, and you're going to understand it. And I'm going to do the best I can with it. But you guys take care. I love you, and I hope the Lord blesses you real good. Bye-bye.